So today, I want to talk about Final Fantasy, at 9 to be precise. I think it's only fitting that my first ever video on this channel covers Final Fantasy 9, as this is a game that's very dear to my heart. And back when I was a kid, it didn't matter if things were tough at home or at school, because I got to immerse myself in the adventures of Zidane and his friends in the world of Gaia. So without further ado, let's get started on my first edition of 5-minute video game histories. Final Fantasy IX was released at the turn of the century on July 7th, 2000. Directed by Hiroyuki Ito, who had previously directed the immensely popular Final Fantasy VI, there was a lot of pressure to deliver on the coattails of the blockbuster and critically acclaimed Final Fantasy VII and VIII. Interestingly, despite the previous game's successes, it was decided that a very different approach would be taken to the last two installments, focusing heavily on the series' original fantasy roots. Rumour has it that this decision was ultimately made so the series didn't start to become too formulaic, with Final Fantasy VII, VIII, and the Spirits Within film all having a similar technologically advanced feel. Final Fantasy IX takes us back to a traditional medieval setting with little technology and a class-based battle system, where each character has set roles within the party. In further attempts to mix things up, it was decided staff from the American offices would join the central Japanese team in developing the game. It proved difficult for the American recruits to work continuously in Japan, so Square moved development to their state-of-the-art Hawaiian studio, a middle ground so the American and Japanese could comfortably collaborate. There are a few nods to this in the game. This underpinning theme of making the game different was so prevalent that it even shaped the main protagonist, Zidane. These changes were so radical that there were internal disputes over whether they should call the game Final Fantasy IX and include it as a main entry into the series, for fear of alienating the Western fans they'd picked up with the previous two installments. Now, I know what you might be thinking, because I thought the same thing when I initially read that. We're not that bad over here. But unfortunately, if you take a look back at some press clippings from during the development of Final Fantasy IX, you'll see there was a lot of unease around the direction the game was taking. So the fears the development team expressed were rooted very much in reality. Final Fantasy IX entered development back in 1998. At the same time, the finishing touches were being put on Final Fantasy VIII. As the series' last game on the PlayStation, Hironobu Sakaguchi, the series creator, envisioned a reflection on the older games. Due to this, Final Fantasy IX is filled with subtle nods to previous games' characters and scenarios for eagle-eyed gamers. Sakaguchi went on record to name Final Fantasy IX as his favourite Final Fantasy game in the lead up to its release. He doubled down on this in a recent interview with YouTuber ProZD, citing it as the closest to his ideal view of what Final Fantasy should be. Now, you'd be remiss to do a video on any Final Fantasy and not mention the music. Long-standing composer of the series, Nobuo Uematsu, stated he got quite carried away when composing for Final Fantasy IX. Being given the original scope of composing only a handful of tracks, he went on to create 160, which is the most he's arranged for any Final Fantasy to date. He credited this to the free rein he was given with the setting and a feeling of being let loose to have fun, not bound by the gritty realism of both 8 and 9. It has been reported on multiple occasions that Final Fantasy IX is Uematsu's favourite Final Fantasy. One of the main things the development team did to mitigate possible alienation of Western audiences was to make the characters very relatable and the story easy to follow. To do this, they gave each character strong defining character qualities, which not only helped characterize them easily, but allowed for fantastic character growth throughout the course of the game, learning from each other's strong traits. Another device that was implemented to help gamers relate to the characters was the introduction of the active time event system. This allowed you to see the cast out of the main spotlight, interacting with minor characters, giving more context to their individual tales. Ultimately, Final Fantasy IX was a great success, selling over 2.5 million copies by the end of 2000. Although it was a top seller in Japan, 9 did not fare as well in the United States or Europe, falling short of the benchmarks set by its older siblings in previous years, although it was still one of the most successful games of that year. Final Fantasy IX is critically heralded as one of the best Final Fantasies, and has a lasting legacy as being one of the most interesting and risky entries in the series, although criminally underrated at large due to its unfortunate placement in the chronology. Well, that's it. Like I promised, I kept it brief. Hopefully you learned something new. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Most importantly, drop me a comment on what video game I should do a brief history of next. Goodbye and take care.